When you're hunting for a welding tool, the first thing that scares most hobbyists and small shop owners is the endless parade of cheap, cordless models that look great on a shelf, but end up stalling the moment you try to do a real job. I've seen people spend an evening trying to start a simple repair, only to realize the thing can't hold a charge long enough to finish the weld, or the arc keeps sputtering and they end up with a mess of splatter that looks worse than the original flaw. That's the kind of buyer's regret that makes you hesitate, wondering whether a premium-priced cordless welder actually lives up to its promises, or just adds another piece of junk to your toolbox. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Zocxielr Cordless Welding machine tries to be the answer to that exact dilemma. It's marketed as a portable, battery-powered MIG stick welder with a digital IGBT inverter and an LED display that promises smooth, clean welds without the need for a generator or a wall outlet. Before I hit the record button, I dug into the specifications, skimmed a handful of forums where users compare it to other cordless units, and tried to map out where the value really comes from, not from the buzzwords, but from the day-to-day experience you'll have on a job site, in a garage, or out in the field. First, let's talk about the power source. The Zocxielr ships with two 6,000 mAh lithium-ion batteries that can be swapped on the fly. In practical terms, that means you get roughly 3,040 minutes of continuous welding at 80 amps before you have to pause and swap or recharge. For a light to medium project, think repairing a broken fence gate, touching up a metal frame on a garden shed, or doing a short MIG pass on a car body panel. That window is often plenty. And because the batteries are hot swap, you can keep working by simply sliding in a fresh pack while the other charges on a bench or in your truck. That's a genuine workflow advantage over single battery units that force you to stop the whole job. Now, the LED display. On paper, it's a simple numeric readout that tells you current voltage, battery level, and mode. In real life, the display is actually helpful when you're working under a tarp or in dim lighting. You can glance at the digit panel and instantly see if your voltage is dropping, which is a dead giveaway sign that the battery is nearing depletion. I tried it on a damp concrete wall, and the bright green numbers stayed legible even with a welding helmet on. That kind of feedback helps you avoid the dreaded arc dies out halfway through scenario that cheap units often suffer from. The welding arc itself feels smoother than many entry-level cordless welders I've tried. The machine uses an IGBT inverter, which lets it deliver a steadier, more precise current than the older SC-based converters. The result is less spatter and a cleaner bead, which is a big win if you're dealing with thin sheet metal where you can't afford to gouge the material. In a test welding a 1mm steel panel, the bead was even and didn't require a lot of post-cleaning. That's the sort of smooth weld, less splatter claim the marketing mentions, but now you can see it on a real part. However, there are trade-offs you need to be aware of. The machine caps out at 160 amps, which is fine for hobby projects and small repairs, but if you're looking to weld thicker plates, say 10mm structural steel, or you need deep penetration for heavy-duty fabrication, you'll quickly discover the limitation. The dual batteries can push you past the 80 amp sweet spot for a short burst, but you'll still be constrained by the machine's internal transformer size and the thermal management system. In essence, you're buying a portable tool, not a full-size shop welder. Another practical consideration is the duty cycle. Even with two batteries, the welder can only sustain a continuous arc for about 5 minutes before it needs to cool down. In a workshop where you're making dozens of identical brackets, that pause can add up. The design is clearly aimed at mobility, not marathon production runs. If you need to weld a large batch of parts in one sitting, a mains-powered stick welder will still be more efficient. Who should buy this? If you're a DIY enthusiast who does occasional metalwork, a contractor who needs a backup unit for on-site repairs, or a hobbyist who likes to tinker without hauling a generator, the Zocxielr hits the sweet spot. Its portability allows you to bring it to a rooftop, a remote job site, or even a campsite where you're building a custom metal bike frame. The quick battery swap and the LED readout make it user-friendly for anyone who isn't a welding technician, but still wants reliable arcs. On the other hand, if you run a small fabrication shop that requires consistent high-amperage output, or you're planning to weld thick structural components, you'll likely feel throttled by the 160 amp ceiling and the short duty cycle.